The largest deal in Canadian history. That's what Premier Doug Ford is promising will come out of today's electric vehicle plant announcement from Honda Canada. This will be Ontario's third EV production plant. Honda expected to invest billions to build up Canada's EV supply chain. So what will this new facility mean for our economy and for zero-emission vehicle targets? We're going to get some answers this morning on what it means for the industry by Rachel Doran. She's the Director of Policy and Strategy at Clean Energy Canada. Welcome back to your morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so the day is here. But Rachel, you know, right now we're at this stretch point. We don't yet have the supply to achieve the goals for ownership here in Canada. So what kind of impact will another plant have in this province on that?
Well, we're eagerly waiting to see. As you mentioned, Premier Ford has been dropping some hints earlier this week, and we know Quebec came out and said they were fighting hard for this announcement. So there's a lot of anticipation. To put it in context, Premier Ford has kind of said this is going to be twice as big as the Volkswagen deal. And when Volkswagen announced its $7 billion investment in Ontario, it's building a plant that has 200 football fields in size, and this is going to be bigger. So, we're talking about a lot of vehicle supply coming online, and a really, I think, exciting indication about just what a big player Canada's becoming in the battery supply chain space.
You brought up Quebec, so I wanted to ask you, because they did bid hard for this. The deal went to Alliston, Ontario. What gave them the edge?
Well, I think Canada overall is starting to get really recognized in the space of the battery supply chain. Bloomberg came out this year and said that Canada, in its estimation, knocked China off of its annual ranking of supply chain potential, and did that for a couple of reasons. The Canadian government has put in tax incentives last budget, this budget. I think as countries increasingly look to get critical minerals from sort of friendly suppliers, there's a lot of folks eyeing up Canada's critical mineral potential. But also, I think our clean electricity, we're producing batteries with sort of cleaner and hopefully better, standards for production. And I think there's companies that know that there'll be a value to that. So, I think Canada writ large is exciting, and Ontario certainly will see what kinds of supports Ontario's promised. But we have an integrated auto supply chain with the U.S. I think this plant is not only going to be providing vehicles to Canada, but also, there's going to be purchasers in the U.S. and they'll have access to those U.S. markets as well, which makes Ontario very attractive.
You touched on the Volkswagen deal, and when that was announced, there was a lot of criticism because the feeling was we had come in too low. We had given too much away. We don't know the full details of this Honda one yet, but what would have been, sacrifice is the wrong word, but what would we have had to let go of in order to get that plant built here in Canada?
Well, I think it's fair to say all jurisdictions right now are watching this shift over to electric vehicles and trying to get in the door now, because these supply chains are going to exist for many years to come. So, the U.S. put a very, a large package of tax credits together to try to lure investments there. And Canada, in its last budget, didn't quite get to the same levels, but did put its own manufacturing tax credits in place. But I think the reason people are fighting for these kind of central anchor investments in the battery supply chain is that the auto parts manufacturers have come out and said they're very excited. This is going to be, contracts for them. Local communities like St. Thomas or potentially Alliston, if that's where this facility is going to be. There's even been rumors of Sarnia. Are going to see that kind of local pickup in home building and, like the services that cater to these things. So it really anchors a lot of surrounding investment and hopefully, lots of jobs to come.
Yeah, hopefully. Statistics have showed a slight dip in enthusiasm for electric vehicles. We know that part of that is just cost. How concerned should we be that consumers are starting to move away from their desire for electric vehicles, even though we have these targets for 2030?
I think electric vehicles were rising so quickly in North America in the past couple of years. It's not surprising to see, like a few dips along the way. But make no mistake, the world is going electric. The projections for 2024 are that globally 1 in 5 cars this year is going to be purchased electric. So that's being driven outside of Canada. That's being driven in places like China, the European Union,
Germany.
Germany. The world is going electric, and what we're seeing from these big investments from auto manufacturers is that's where they're putting the R&D investments. That's where, they're putting their marketing dollars.
Right.
So, I think by 2035, with or without regulation, wanting a non-electric car is going to be like wanting a flip phone in 2024. Like, this is where the technology's headed. For the targets in between now and then, I think it's really just making sure that while Canadians are producing these cars, there are also going to be some available to buy in Canada. And that's what those targets are kind of pulling the supply north of the border rather than having it all go to California to be sold there.
Rachel Doran, I know you're watching that announcement very closely coming later today, as will we be. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.